Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, Micah Let's Play, and guess who I am? I'm Micah, because who else would I be? Guys, today I'm so excited. We're going to be talking about the Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City trailers and my theories about the movie. Now, before I get down, you know how Micah does. I have an intro specifically for you. Enjoy.
Now loading Micah's Let's Play.
I know, I'm much too good to you.
You are so kind to me, Donal.
Now before I jump into this video proper, possible spoiler warning alert. These are just theories, but I could be right on some of them, so you've been warned in advance. And if I'm right, guess who wins? We all do, because I figured out some shit. And if not, you all can come back to this video and make fun of me for being so fucking wrong. So, who's winning at life? You are. Also guys, I just want to say, holy bananas, I am almost at 300 subscribers. I want to first say to all of my brand new subscribers, thank you for choosing to subscribe to my channel and welcome to the Micah Let's Play family. And to all of my existing subscribers, thank you for sticking with me throughout this year of me being on YouTube. I appreciate you and love you to life because you guys are amazing. Now, let's jump into this video proper. First things first, I'm going to be talking about both trailers at the same time, and I'm not really going to differentiate between the two, so bear with me. When the first trailer starts, we notice that Claire is with the truck driver, who I have deemed Truck Driver Joe. Just love him for his name. And we notice that she is in the truck with him, hitchhiking back to Raccoon City with him and his adorable dogs. But what we also notice is that there is a woman standing in the road. Now, for those of you who have played the remake of Resident Evil 2 that was released back in 2019, there is also a mysterious woman standing in the road that the truck driver accidentally hits. Now, in this version, if you guys pay close attention to what she is wearing a lab coat. So my theory here is that this is a scientist from the Umbrella Labs that randomly gets out and walks around the countryside, you know, snacking on unsuspecting victims. But in this case, she was the victim because she got hit by a semi. So, sad times for her. Also, you may notice that Claire and the truck driver both get out, showing how the two dogs get infected. And we'll talk more on truck driver Joe and his adventures later. Eventually, Claire returns back to town where she reunites with her brother Chris, but this doesn't seem like a happy sibling reunion. It seems that Claire has gotten some information that make her say, hey, there's something going on, Chris, and we need to investigate. We also notice when you see Claire and Chris reunited, it seemed that Claire had some information from the reporter Ben Bertolucci. We all know if you played the games that Ben Bertolucci was Ada Wong's contact. I'll talk a little bit more on the mysterious missing Ada Wong a little bit later. But for now, it seems that Claire got this information from Ben Bertolucci, and from there, she's sharing with Chris what she now knows. And she's telling Chris that the town has been poisoned by Umbrella. How they've been poisoned, we'll have to see the movie and find out. From there, I do believe this is what kicks off the investigation of what's going on later within Raccoon City and the outskirts when we eventually get to the mansion. Before we jump into the mansion section, there's something that I noticed when Claire and Chris finally split up again. Claire takes her motorcycle and she drives into town. It seems like the city is being shut down. And I don't know why, but I really think that this one random soldier is hung, and it would be really cool just to see him in the city. If you also notice, it seems like cars are being shot at by Umbrella soldiers trying to prevent people from leaving the city. Which begs the question, what has happened to cause this outbreak? Now, we all know in the original movies with Milla Jovovich, it is Milla's ex-husband or her stage husband who causes the outbreak. The question in this video is, what has caused the outbreak here? Is it still William Birkin's or something else? That's what we're going to have to figure out when we see the movie. From there, we eventually jump to the mansion. If you notice, there's a scene where you see the helicopter flying above and you see a flipped over vehicle. Now, for those of you who may have played Resident Evil 0, that's a callback to that game. But it's really cool to see this vehicle being flipped over because it also makes you wonder what has been going on prior to have the STARS team flown out to investigate the mysterious Spencer mansion. You may notice it looked like Jill's about to say, "Look, Chris," as the famous scene where you spot the down helicopter from the Bravo squad. But in this version of events, it doesn't seem like there's a Bravo or Alpha, it just seems like there's the STARS team. From there, you see the investigation take place, where you see Chris, Jill, Richard, and Wesker floating around the mansion. Here's a theory that I have on this. Now, for those of you who may be wondering, why is Richard Ackard here and not Barry Burton? Well, that's the reason why. Barry Burton has been replaced by Richard and Wesker. Because if you played the original Resident Evil games, you would know that Jill and Barry are working together throughout their investigation as you play Jill's scenario. Now, in this version, you would notice that Jill is walking around with Wesker versus Barry, meaning that Barry as a character has been replaced by Wesker and with Richard. Now, for those of you who have played the original Resident Evil and played the remake, you would know that Richard sadly meets his end, depending on who you're playing with either Yawn the Giant Snake if you're Jill, or if you're playing Chris, Neptune the Giant Shark. Although he does meet his demise in a very horrible fashion, at least you get his amazing shotgun. That's a win, right? And also, in case you guys didn't notice, Richard is also sporting a shotgun. So that's a fun little Easter egg there as well. So that's my theory on why Richard Ackard has taken the place of Barry Burton in the story. Maybe Barry was a character, maybe he was a part of the Bravo team, maybe that's what the vehicle we see flipped over, maybe that was Barry's vehicle. Who really knows? We'll just have to wait until we see the movie. Further, as we explore inside the mansion, we notice that we also get a glimpse of Wesker saying the line of "split up." Apparently, Wesker has never seen a horror movie, which is the worst thing you want to tell anybody. But also it begs the question is, does Wesker know what's going on inside the mansion? Is he there to gather combat data for Umbrella? On the STARS team, from there we get another major callback to the infamous scene where we see poor Kenneth dying at the hands of a zombie. But the question remains is, who was there before the STARS team showed up? Is that a STARS member being killed by a zombie? Is this Barry? Is this Kenneth? Or is this sadly Rebecca? We don't know. Or is it just one of the scientists that lived in the mansion? Who knows? We'll just have to find out when we see the movie. Also in the mansion, we do get our first look at Lisa Trevor. And we'll talk a little bit more about Lisa Trevor later. The other thing I want to point out is Brad Vickers. Now, if you played the original Resident Evil or the remake, you would know that Brad Vickers flies away in panic when the STARS Alpha team is attacked by a group of Cerberus. But in this version, you would notice that Chief Irons says, "Brad, this is Chief Irons," and you would notice that Brad is attacked by a zombie versus him just flying away in blind panic. In this next scene here, you'll notice that Brad crashes into the Spencer library, where you see Jill and Wesker doing their investigation. Those of you who have played the remake of Resident Evil 1, you'll know this is the same library where you fight Yawn the Giant Snake for the second time. Also, you'll notice in the scene a piano where if you play as Jill, she plays Moonlight Sonata, and if you play as Chris, Rebecca plays Moonlight Sonata for you. I thought that was a nice little Easter egg. As I mentioned before, Lisa Trevor is also in the movie. As you can see, there's a file on Lisa Trevor that Claire and Leon find later. Also, in the mansion, you notice Lisa actually puts a finger to her mouth, telling whoever she's looking at to be quiet. I believe that Lisa is far more sentient than she's ever been before, and me and my good buddy Link the Viking actually had a conversation about this, and we talked a little bit more about this in depth. We believe that Lisa is actually more sentient than the game version, because in the game version, Lisa was sentient but to a degree. This version of Lisa seems like she'll be far more sentient, and she may possibly be an ally, or she still may be a ferocious villain. Another thing I wanted to point out, Jill and Wesker are partnered up together, meaning that Jill and Wesker are going to have similar scenes as Jill and Barry. You also notice that Chris and Richard team up in this version, but it still seems like that Richard Ackard still meets his untimely demise inside the mansion. Now, as I said earlier in the video, I believe Richard as well as Wesker take up the role for Barry Burton. As I said before, we don't see Barry anywhere in this trailer, and I believe he may have been cut from the film. Or he could be another team member that died in the early parts of the movie. Or the people who died in the mansion could just be regular RPD officers that unfortunately died inside the mansion. That's my theory on the whole mansion thing. Now, some of you might be wondering, well, why is this a thing? When I talk about Leon, I'll explain to you why Barry and Leon's characters are changed or absent in the movie. Also in the mansion, you notice this scene here where it looks like Chris is inside of a supply room where he's preparing for a fight. This could be the elevator scene you see where you're riding down the elevator or riding up the elevator as you're preparing to face off the tyrant. Also, you see this image of Jill here holding a radio, and it seems like she's seeing something absolutely horrific in front of her. I wonder, is she looking at a tyrant? Also, you'll notice Wesker has a gash on his head, and it seems like Wesker may have a change of heart at the end of the movie, because you notice in this scene right here, he's saying, oh, Umbrella is gonna blow this place up. Wesker's character may be changed from what we know and love from him in the games, because there's this awesome interview with Tim Hopper where he explains playing Wesker's character more three-dimensional. Here's the clip.
I think fans of the game will be happy, but at the same time, I think they should, recognize that we want to make these characters as real and as grounded as possible. So, I think that one thing I said about Wesker is I didn't want him to be. I feel like the Wesker in the game obviously has that kind of like Mr. Smith from the Matrix type idea, and I wanted him to be a bit more, three-dimensional than that, and have again a moral high ground, and it's not just as cut and dry as it is in the game, but I think it's also there's an origin element to Wesker, in this, and what he maybe was before he turned into the one we see in a lot of the games. But I think from an aesthetic point of view, I think the games really influenced this well, and it kind of is an aesthetic that certainly when we were shooting it, that I was like, man, it feels like a game. So I think I'm really hoping that fans of the game take something nice away from it, that it's the game plus more, plus more more of a depth to these characters.
After seeing that, I'm even more excited to see Tim Hopper's version of Wesker. Let's move on from the mansion and let's talk about the scenes within the RPD. A few of the scenes in the RPD that stand out to me are the ones where you see Leon locking the gate, ensuring none of the zombies will get in, but unfortunately they break in. Then also you see the scene here with Chief Brian Irons, Claire, and Leon standing in the main hall of the RPD, which looks absolutely amazing. And of course you see Brian Irons tell Brad Vickers, hey, respond, but sadly Brad is lunch and cannot respond. You'll also notice where Claire and Leon are inside the armory, and if you look behind Leon, you actually see a box of shotgun shells, which are the same shotgun shells from the RE2 remake, which is a really cool callback to the games. Once you see Claire hand Leon his vest and they are fully armed, they seem to be making their way out of the police station, and they make their way eventually to the Raccoon City Orphanage, and we'll touch on that in a second. Now inside the RPD, here's a few things that I noticed. We get the famous scene where you see Claire and Leon both look up to see a liquor drop down in front of them. This, I think, is incredibly cool because I could not believe they actually put that in the movie. The famous scene in RE2 98 where you see Claire and Leon look up and the liquor drops down. I think that is so cool. Also, you may notice where you see Leon crawling away from the liquor as the liquor is approaching him quickly. If you pay close attention to the liquor, it's a split-second scene, but right here, there is something standing behind the liquor, and it looks like it attacks the liquor. Here's my thoughts and feelings on this. I believe this may be a tyrant. This was actually pointed out to me by someone on Twitter, and I don't remember who it is, so if you're watching this video, please let us know in the comment section. I am so sorry I cannot give you proper credit for sharing this bit of information with me. If you look behind the liquor, it does look like there is something behind the liquor that looks like a large male figure. Now, some people think it's Ada, some people may think it's Claire, but the thing about the jacket is that the jacket is solid black, Claire's jacket is red, and if this is Ada, and we'll touch on her later, her trench coat was actually a tan color trench coat, and this looks black and looks like a large male figure. So could this be Mr. X actually making his appearance in the RPD to chase our heroes around? Now we come to the scene where we see Chief Brian Irons facing down the Cerberus, also known as the zombie dog. This could be a potential death scene for Chief Irons, but it seems like he is all by himself. Maybe at some point he gets separated from Claire and Leon, possibly running from the Lickers or Mr. X, and winds up here where he is facing down the zombie dog. Now, if you remember in the remake or in the original RE2, this is also where you meet the zombie dog. So again, this is a nice cool little callback to the games that you see in the movie, and I'm super duper here for it. Also at the RPD, you'll notice the return of Truck Driver Joe. But look, Truck Driver Joe looks to be infected and has his infamous crash, not splitting up Claire and Leon, but now having a massive accident in front of the RPD. And this is possibly why the zombies are able to get inside the RPD. So I'm excited to see how this scene fully plays out, because this is actually a really cool way to insert the truck scene and make it even more dynamic and dramatic as our heroes are trapped inside the RPD as they see the zombies have now broken in. Let's fast forward a bit and let's talk about Claire and Leon, where it seems like they eventually run back into the Raccoon City Orphanage. Now, the Orphanage was not in the original Resident Evil games. It was actually in the remakes, and it was a wonderful welcome addition where you play as Sherry Birkins as you try to escape Chief Brian Irons, and Claire makes her way there to save Sherry. In the orphanage, you find a whole bunch of documents that explains experiments that were happening on the orphans that lived within it. What makes this so exciting is that the director, Johannes Roberts, has said this story is mainly going to be focusing on Claire Redfield and Chris Redfield and their time at the orphanage. Now, why is this so important and why am I mentioning this? Well, if you notice, there's this infamous woman that you see here closing the curtains, and a lot of people are wondering, who the hell is this lady? But I believe this is Alexia Ashford, and I'm going to explain to you how I got my confirmation of this information. If you notice, you see the scene where you see Claire and Leon are watching this old film, and you see William Birkins with two small children. Now, this is an exact scene of Culfred and Alexia sitting together as they pick off the wings off of a dragonfly. And this looks like an exact duplication of that scene, and I'm super excited to see it. Now, let's get back to how I discovered that this lady is Alexia Ashford. Now, I know she looks a little different from what we all know and love as Alexia Ashford. It looks like she's been horribly mutated because her head looks enlarged, her hair is thinning, and her eyes are black, and she also looks slightly deranged. If you notice, she has blonde hair. She would be about the same age as Claire and Chris in this movie. Now, the other thing that I noticed when I noticed her age, her hair, her attire, and also she's inside the orphanage, meaning she's been dwelling inside the orphanage for all these years. There is a Spanish trailer that is out. Here's a clip here. All the scenes are in Spanish, and this was brought to my attention once again by my good buddy Link the Viking. His channel link will be in the video description. Now, if you notice in the Spanish trailer, you see Alfred hiding under the table. Claire does ask the famous line of, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" And the young man replies, "You need help." And that's a direct callback to the remake where Claire's like, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" And Sherry's like, "You need help." I love it so much. There's so many Easter eggs inside of both of these trailers. It is amazing. This is how I was able to discover that this is Alexia Ashford, because that's Alfred hidden under the table. And it's so funny because you don't see that in the American trailer, but you do see it in the Spanish one. Once I saw this scene, I knew that this was Alexia and Alfred Ashford that William Birkins was doing his experiments on. Now, what actually happens inside the orphanage, that is something I don't know, and we'll have to discover when we watch the movie. But when I saw this, I was like, wow, I'm really excited to see how this story is going to play out. Now that we're talking about Leon and Claire, I want to touch on why Leon's appearance and behavior seems so different from his version in the video game. Now, a lot of you might be saying, hey, Leon looks a lot like RE3R's Sexy Rambo Carlos Oliveira, where you would actually be right. Now, for those of you who may not know, sometimes movies will change how a character looks or change their storyline, giving other character storylines to someone else. TV shows and movies do this shit all the time. Also, what makes me believe this is that a long time ago I did another video on the Resident Evil movie, and I believe the gentleman's name is Unknown Gentleman. Here's his name here up on screen. He actually pointed this out to me, that they might have taken the look of Carlos and Leon's character and blended the two together. Johannes Roberts actually said he wanted Leon to be someone who was funny and weary. Now, you know as well as I know, Leon is not funny nor weary. Leon had a very militant, I must do the right thing, I am an officer of the law and I must protect anyone who's in my custody or whatever. We know that's Leon's behavior. Who this other guy is, it's not Leon. This is Carlos Oliveira as a Leon archetype. I hope that makes sense. This is why we don't see Barry in the movie and why we don't see a white version of Leon. Just so everyone can kind of understand why the characters look so different and why some characters are completely absent. Let's move on and talk about William Birkin. Now, you actually see William Birkin's early in the trailer where it looks like he had longer hair, meaning this may be a flashback of the orphanage when it was up and running and he was doing his nefarious experiments on the children. Flash forward, you'll see William Birkin talking to his daughter Sherry saying, honey, it's time for us to go. We need to leave. If you also notice later in the trailer, you'll notice Sherry with her mother Annette, who may or may not be a scientist in this movie. She may just be William Birkin's wife. And it seems like they're inside the labs of either the Umbrella Labs or somewhere in their house. I'm not really sure where this location is. We'll touch on the lab later. If you notice, you'll see it looks like Alexia Ashford or Alfred Ashford is on the exam table opened up where William is continuing to do experiments on them. This could be before the scene where you see Alexia attack Claire, or this could be afterwards. I'm not really sure. You do see William say the famous line of, this is my life's work and I won't let anyone take it from me. I got super nostalgic vibes when I heard that, and I was so happy to hear William say it. Let's talk about the death scene. Yes, you actually see William's death in the trailer, and it looks like he opens his eyes and they're black. Now, here's my theory. If William was not killed by Hunk and his team, William could have possibly been killed by Alexia, who's on the exam table, or it could be Alfred who killed him, or this could be the absent Ada Wong. Now, here's why I think Ada Wong is going to be responsible for William's death. Now, you notice that whenever you see Claire and Leon, they're always together and they're never apart. And you would expect to see Claire with Sherry and Leon with Ada, but it doesn't seem like that's the case in this movie. It seems like Leon and Claire are going to be tag teaming their adventure together, and it seems like Sherry is going to only be with her mother and father in the labs of Umbrella. Why is Ada Wong being mentioned in this theory? Now, we do see her name in the bill play. As you can see here, her name is right there, right under Resident Evil. It says Ada Wong, and we also know the exquisite Lily Gao will be portraying her role as Ada, but we don't see Ada in the trailer. And Ada is, as I said before, mysteriously absent. So I think Ada is going to be playing a much more smaller role in this story, where she's going to basically be behind the scenes as Leon, Claire, Chris, and Jill, and the others are having their adventures. She's going to have her own solo adventure while she's going either throughout the RPD, getting to the labs, and running into William Birkin's. Again, that's just a theory. Now, the other thing I want to point out is that it seems like at the beginning of the story, Claire and Chris separate and they eventually come back together at the end, because if you notice here, this looks like the same lab that Jill is standing in, Wesker is in, as Chris is telling Claire, this is too dangerous, you need to get out of here. I believe that our four main heroes, Chris, Claire, Leon, and Jill, team up to face off William Birkin's at the end of the movie, as you see G3 Birkin's coming down inside of the train. Yes, that's the exact same train you see from RE298 and RE2R, where William Birkin's, you fight him as you defeat the game the final time once you play the other characters B scenario. So I'm excited to see how this movie is going to play out, because you do see Leon with the rocket launcher. I hope he says the famous line of "Game over," and that will make my heart sing with joy. But we'll see when the movie comes out. Hey guys, sorry for this random interruption of my theory video, but as I was editing, Johannes Roberts did this short clip here talking more about the movie. You guys need to check this out.
Welcome to Raccoon City is a very faithful adaptation of the Resident Evil games. This is where it all started.
Why are you back here, Claire?
This is an origin story where we meet all the iconic characters from the games.
We should split up.
Every frame has details to the game, from the burger that the truckers eat in to the actual truck design. We built the mansion and police station to the spec of the game.
Shall we go?
This is a horror movie created with love of the game.
Oh my God.
There are a few things in here that actually confirm my theory, which is hilarious, about Lisa Trevor, but I'm going to talk more on this little short clip in another video. Now back to your regular scheduled program. But now that you've heard all my theories, my feelings, my thoughts on the movie itself, I want to know, what do you guys think? Do you think I'm absolutely crazy? Do you agree with my theories? Or are you just saying the same thing I've been saying throughout this entire theory video? We'll just wait and see until the movie comes out. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed all of this content. Once again, thank you so much to all of my new subscribers and existing subscribers for joining me on my journey of YouTube as I continue to grow on this platform. But if you guys enjoyed any of this content, do me a huge favor by considering liking this video, subscribing to my channel, hitting the notification bell, and leaving me a comment in the comment section down below, because I would love to know your thoughts and feelings on my theory. Also guys, remember my golden rules of washing your hands, wearing gloves, wearing a mask, practicing social distance, and giving everyone love and respect, because hello, it's 2021, love and respect is a requirement. So with all that said, I love you all to life, but until then, I shall see you on the flip side. So, but wait, holy shit, you guys hear that? I think that's Nemesis. I think he's mad that him and his tyrant buddies are not in the movie or featured in the trailer. I better get out of here before he comes after me. Alright guys, I gotta go.